Jeni Browne. Welcome to this week's edition of MFB News, and I hope I find you all glowy from the very beautiful weekend that we've just all enjoyed. And now it's raining. Obviously it's raining because it's going to be half-term week soon and I'm having a week off, so I won't be here with you next week. So I will be spending a week in the UK in the rain. How could it be more British? I don't think it could. Now, in terms of what we got for you this week, we're going to be covering off what's happened with swap rates and also pricing changes, and thankfully a more positive tone than it has been in recent weeks. We're then going to move on to everyone's favourite subject of tax returns. And then finally, we're going to be sharing with you the latest results from the Mortgage Works' Buy-to-Let Barometer, where you can kind of just get a very kind of snapshot sense of how landlords are perceiving the private rental sector at the moment. Now, before we dive into that, I just want to say that we are running a webinar, which is all about how to buy property at auction. And we're going to be accompanied by two really fantastic guest speakers. So we're going to have a gentleman who is a solicitor who specialises in auction acquisitions. So in terms of knowledge of the kind of legalities of buying property at auction, the potential pitfalls, and any advice they can offer, really, really valuable. And then we're going to be joined by a lender who offers bridging finance, which is, as we all know, generally speaking, bridging finance is how people would fund an auction acquisition, to talk about how that works as well. So really, really good opportunity to kind of develop your knowledge about buying auction, which is becoming more and more popular, incidentally. So if you would like to join us for the webinar, if you just click on the link below, you'll be able to sign up. It's free of charge, and we'd love to see you there. Okay, swap rates and the emotional roller coaster that they are, for me anyway, and I actually mean that as well. So the good news is that we have seen things move down a little bit. They did float back up. So as of 11:30 last night, 5-year swap rates were at 3.930. They had gone as low as 3.815, I think it was last time I checked. So they had kind of gone down even further and then floated back up slightly. But if we compare that to a month ago where they were 4.022 and 1 year ago where they were 4.167, we are quids in. Similar story on 2-year swaps, so 4.456. 1 month ago 4.519, so actually slightly lower, but 1 year ago 4.631. It does feel like we're starting to see things turn in the right direction, which is fantastic. And we have some inflation data due out imminently, which will help shake things. And also, if you just keep your eyes peeled on what's going on in the US with regards to their inflation news, and also the Fed, that will kind of give you, it'll be a good indicator for you as well about what to expect going up. So in terms of how the lenders have reacted to this, and actually, as I was compiling MFB News, the content for you, I was reflecting on this, that people always say that lenders are really quick to put their rates up and really slow to bring them down. And what I would say is that actually I would challenge that opinion, because with swap rates kind of easing at the back end of the previous week, we've seen a bunch of lenders make reductions almost kind of identically as a kind of on a pro rata basis. That's probably not the right terminology, but you know what I mean, in bringing their rates down as well. So they have passed on the reduction in their cost of borrowing straight onto the borrowers, which is to be commended. Now, you're going to notice that this week all the rate cuts have come from the specialist lenders, and that's because these guys tend to be funded by the capital markets, whereas lenders who are running where they have a balance sheet model, they'll probably be exposed to capital markets to some extent. Their model is very different, so they won't have necessarily kind of benefited in the same way from the reduction in swap rates. So in terms of what we've seen foundation home loans. First of all, they introduced a new product, 75% loan to value, available to individuals and limited companies. One of the things that I really like about foundation home loans, they take personal guarantees only from the directors, not the shareholders. They can do day one remortgages. They are good with landlords with large portfolios, all that kind of stuff that we kind of expect to see in the specialist end of the market. So they're pricing now on 5-year fixed rates. Well, this particular product from 99% with a 1% fee. So I think it's the fee that's kind of important here, because a lot of the rates still have those very, very large fees that you know that I particularly love. Now, we've also seen Zephyr Home Loans make reductions to their rates. These are now from 3.64% with an enormous fee, and then they have suitably ascending interest rates with lower fees. And they've also introduced an 80% loan to value option with no fee as well. Now, Zephyr, if you think about how I've just outlined, foundation home loans, limited companies, no maximum number of properties in the background, no minimum income requirement. I mean, this is going to be a theme across this whole thing, right? But that's kind of where we are with Zephyr. Fleet mortgages, rates reduced by 0.2%. They've also introduced some 65% loan to value limited company rates, including a zero fee option, and they've also got a flat fee option where the arrangement fee is £1,999 as well as those rates with the percentage charge fees. Kent Reliance have reduced their rates by up to 30 basis points. They've also interestingly introduced a product for large HMOs and large multi-units where they can lend on multi-unit blocks of up to 20 self-contained units, and that tends to be where anything over 20 and you're going into commercial territory, but they're actually a respectable number of lenders who are able to take on those really lumpy blocks of flats. I mean, a 20 unit block of flats is actually quite large. You can still finance these on buy-to-let terms, is the very good news. Now, the outlier here this week is BM Solutions, who are part of Lloyds Banking Group. So these are a lender who have savers money. These guys have made rate reductions of up to 0.2%. Lend Invest rates have come down by 0.15%. They've also brought in 80% loan to value products for small HMOs, that's under 6 bedrooms, and introduced 2 and 5 year rates for holiday lets as well. We've seen the mortgage lender introduce a multi-property product. This is just worth spending a few moments talking about. So a multi-property product is where you have one single mortgage account which is secured against multiple properties. The other lender who does this very, very well at the moment is Aldermore. Some people love these and some people don't. The benefits of these are it's one mortgage application, one set of underwriting, one set of documents, one kind of sort of legal fees. So lots of kind of good things that go into it. Also, once you've got the account up and running, you're only having to administer one mortgage. It's one mortgage payment, so it keeps things very kind of neat. Downsides of these are that the lender, if you were to pay or sell just one of the properties, it's not a given that you can have a percentage of the capital that would be realised by the sale of the property. So you would be forgiven for thinking, oh, my mortgages was, when I took it out, 75% loan to value, therefore I'm going to sell this property for £100,000. I need to give the lender £75,000, which is 75% of the sale price, but I get to keep the other 25. And sometimes they'll let you do this, but not always. So it can be quite limiting in terms of trying to realise capital if you do sell one of the properties. The other really neat thing about these portfolio loans is that often what the lenders can do is say, well, okay, looking at the portfolio of properties that you're bringing to us, we can see that this property here doesn't meet our rental calculation, but we're going to use the rent in aggregate across the whole portfolio. And as long as the whole thing washes its face rather than each property having to individually wash its own face, then we can go ahead and lend. So well done TML for doing something a bit different. Now we've seen Vida bring down their rates by up to 0.2% on standard properties, and for HMOs and multi-units, they've come down by 0.15%. And the last one to come out before I started recording this video was Capital Home Loans, who have made reductions of 0.21% precisely to their product range as well. So like I say, actually the lenders have reacted to the reduction in cost of funds. They have passed these on to the borrowers. So that's really good news, and I suspect we may see some further reductions come online over the next week or so, so I'll look forward to updating you on that next time around. Now, an article that I read in the week piqued my interest because it was titled "HMRC is appealing to landlords to file tax returns early," i.e. before the 31st of January, which is my target date to file my tax return. The concept of people filing it early actually was beyond me. But what was more interesting actually is that the trend of people who are filing early is increasing. So 194,000 people filed their tax return between April and September. And that's a 7% increase compared to the previous year. The number of people who chose to file their return on the first day of the new tax year alone has doubled since 2018, and last year this was recorded at 77,500 people, which I'm in awe of actually. Now, the article went on to say there are actually some really key benefits for filing your tax return early, and I'm going to take this on board and think about doing mine early. I won't, but I'm going to think about it. So the first thing they've said, and it's just really to kind of get you thinking that maybe there is a better way of doing things than leaving it all to the last minute. So first up, once you file your return, actually, any money that you have to pay for your tax bill does not have to be settled until the 31st of January. So by virtue of doing your tax return early, it doesn't mean you've got to pay early. So what this does is allow you to then spend the months budgeting and getting ready for your payment that has to be in by the 31st of January. They also said they process refunds quicker if you file early. I'm guessing because they get such a kind of swathe of people like me putting their return at the last minute, that actually any tax refunds that are due, which, you know, again is an alien concept to me, would be paid much quicker. And what they've also pointed out is that HMRC do offer a budget plan to pay through instalments through a time to pay arrangement. So actually, what you can do is get your tax return done early, and then you can make sort of lump sum payments throughout the rest of the year to the 31st of January, which gives you kind of real ability to budget. And then finally, what they said is that if you do file before the end of December, so 1 month early, it does mean that you can actually potentially pay via your tax code. So rather than having to have the tax up front, it means that your tax code will change and you'll be paying more tax in the coming year. So I think it's just really, like I say, it's interesting because I just always do mine really late, and obviously I'm sure all of you watching this are not as disorganised as I am, but actually just really kind of get you thinking that maybe, you know, getting the return done a bit earlier could be beneficial to you. Now, the Mortgage Works have just released one of their legendary surveys that I absolutely love and love to share with you as often as I possibly can, and this is their Buy-to-Let Barometer, which is covering off Q1 of this year. And there's lots of good stuff actually in here. And this is really talking about how landlords are feeling about the private rental sector and being a landlord within that sector. So always good to kind of hear how everybody's faring. So first of all, more landlords are feeling good about the prospects of their own letting business. 38% of you are feeling good compared to 26% in the previous quarter. So optimism has definitely increased. Now, interestingly, 38% are feeling good about rental yields, which is down from 42% in the previous quarter. Now, we know rents are increasing, so I can only deduce from that actually what people are really worried about is the impact of the increased mortgage costs rather than the yields per se. And the sentiment towards capital gains has not changed, so the same number of landlords were feeling good as last quarter. Now, 32% of landlords are planning on selling in the next 12 months, compared to 11% who plan to buy. So nearly 3 times as many landlords are planning on selling rather than acquiring anything, which is really, really concerning. Obviously, there's a massive problem in terms of stock availability in the PRS, and this is kind of thing is just going to compound it. Now, obviously, it's not for me to judge people for selling their buy-to-let properties, and actually I totally understand why people are looking to divest or maybe come out of buy-to-let altogether, but I think it is really kind of just very worrying in terms of what that makes the future look for tenants. Now, 78% of landlords have increased their rents in the last 12 months. Just to kind of give you a picture on how that compares, in 2021 it was just 21% of landlords. So actually so many of you, the vast majority of you, are now increasing your rents annually. So it was a very short report, but actually I think broadly speaking a very, very positive one, which, like I say, I hope gives you a kind of view on how some of your landlord peers are feeling about being a landlord just now. Okay, now I have been sent in a question of the week, and it is an absolute belter, which is actually going to require some research from my side before I answer it, because quite honestly, I don't know. It's something kind of thinking to the future. And this is all about how potential rent control caps, if Labour came into power, could then influence how valuers value rents on buy-to-let properties. So a really, really amazing question, but one that I'm going to need to do a bit of research on. So you guys can look forward to that one being discussed in 2 weeks' time. So really, all there is for me to do is just say thank you, as always, for investing your time to watch this. I hope you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, well, I might be off having a weekend brain. Next week, my lovely colleagues at MFB will be working away and very happy to answer your questions. So do get in touch, 0345 345 6788. And hopefully by the time we catch up again, interest rates will have come down further and we'll be having a nice positive update for you. Until then, look after yourselves.